Welcome to today's episode of the Cross Labs podcast, On My Mind.
Today, there's something on Luke's mind, and he wonders that if music lets us experience various sounds and paintings let us experience different sights, then what do games let us experience?
If we put games in the context of art, what is the medium that games are using to convey their message?
I'm thinking about Detroit Becoming Human, and at least in that instance, a lot of it was decision. I wonder if it's a medium in order to explore how different decisions have particular impact within some different set of rules than the ones that we encounter every day.
Yeah, that's interesting as a first argument, because basically, whether it's music or paintings or drawings and so on and so forth, the idea is that the person listening to the music or watching at the painting is always experiencing the art form from the point of view of the person creating the art. While in a game, basically you're the one in control. I wonder if there is something more than that.
You guys think in art in general, to experience art, you don't need to be a sort of actor. Even for the painting, you would have your gaze go around, right? Or for music, you would have your attention go about different levels of the composition. You have some agency in all those cases. So that would make it more similar to the gaming.
It depends on what you mean by you have a sense of agency when watching a painting. Because as I said before, basically you're just watching what someone else wants you to see. Usually you have control over what exactly you want to do.
Sure, I guess there is more of an accent on that, but maybe it's a spectrum. People have designed the game. They want you to experience a certain set of things. So maybe there is more of a focus on the agential component, but maybe it's not that different.
Maybe instead of talking in terms of decisions in particular, we could talk in terms of affordances. Because you can make all sorts of decisions or think different things about a painting as part of experiencing it, but the painting doesn't really give you an affordance, at least like not in the usual circumstances of, say, looking at a painting in a museum. It gives you the affordance. You could roll it up or put it on your wall somewhere or burn it or whatever, or steal it, but the actual content of the painting is not something that creates a new space of interaction for you. Whereas in a game, almost everything about a game is about creating connection in the sense of decisions, but like more broadly, things that you could do, things where you choosing to do it has some effect or has some impact. And then the thing that you experience is in some sense the structure of that relationship. So like I am making decisions, but the thing that's equivalent to like sight or sound versus the interpretation of the sight or the interpretation of the sound, which is a higher level thing, would be just the affordance, the feeling that I could do something.
I think other forms of art also give me a chance to, explore different perspectives. So I see the agential, again, accent, right? But it's mostly an accent.
I was remembering how I got my first touch about getting into the shoes of others through the photos of Robert Capa, especially the photos that he did during the Spanish War. They were like incredible testament of the horrors that happen in war. And then if you play in a video game, like let's say you play Call of Duty, it is such a different disconnection from what the horrors of war are, because those games make war enjoyable. I'm of course not going to be thinking, this NPC had a family waiting for him at home, as I do in the photos from Robert Capa. And that's a...
You monster.
There is no way that you can make a video game in which you can have that sense of empathy, because nothing is real.
I'm not sure I would agree that you can't have empathy for an NPC in a game.
I do. I also cry when Bob-omb died in Paper Mario for the Switch, but not in the sense as you will have for someone getting shot in a Robert Capa.
Did you cry?
In the photo, no. In the Mario game, yes, I did.
That is very interesting topic you are opening right now, putting border between the game and reality. Because if we are too much obsessed by the game, involving those things in reality and affecting us by time, this is inside happening, inside the person happening, the border between reality and the game, but also outside. Right now, by using virtual reality, they can mix the game with reality. For example, imagine there is a war field, but a battlefield, the things are real, and they mix it with a game using virtual reality. If that border is not clarified enough, it can be disastrous, or it can be efficient. It depends in what way we see it.
That reminds me also about an episode of Black Mirror where there was...
Exactly.
You were thinking about the same thing? The
Ender's Game is this, right?
what game?
Ender's Game. It's a book by Orson Scott Card. I don't know. I mean, must have been out in the 80s. The gimmick is that they get a bunch of kids and take them to this tactical battle school thing and give them military training. And at the end, they have them do these simulator exercises, but the simulators are actually controlling the ships in a real conflict. And they're just told it's an exercise.
That stuff always remind me of that concept of the other. And that is something that is very difficult to develop in a video game. And that's why there's such a good simulators and trainings for like wars and horrible stuff. Because you lose that concept of the other that you definitely have present whenever you're faced into an art piece, either being image or music or whatever.
I think I would have to go with Luke, though, and say that this is absolutely something that games construct. And that is definitely part of the spectrum or the palette of things that can be expressed in a game medium. It may just be the fact that a lot of games don't do that very well or don't try to do that at all. But a lot of games do actually try to do that and are effective in doing so. I mean, it doesn't take much to get a human to feel sympathy for something totally inanimate, right?
Games are a primary medium to do that because you can very realistically have a person that is right in your face and that looks like it feels and has thoughts in their heads.
But then I must be the worst gamer ever, because when I'm seeing a photo of anything, I'm like, oh wow, I wonder where this cat lives, what does this cat do? And my brain just goes in like a long train of thought. But then when I'm playing a video game, I'm always thinking, oh, I wonder what the game designer wrote her reaction to be if I do this or that. No, it's not the same train of thought. I set myself a boundaries to my thought.
You know, like if you saw someone shot in front of you, it would be different than seeing a photograph of someone being shot. If you're participating in a simulation where someone is artistically trying to make you care for a kid, it would be different than having an actual kid who's depending on you. The existence of a difference doesn't mean that the media can't do it. It means that there's a barrier to be crossed, and that one of the forms of demonstrable artistry in the medium is to cross that barrier better than one would think possible before actually engaging with that medium.
Okay, so you would say that maybe there are some games that are at least as good as a very good movie in this respect, or maybe even better. Like, are there ones where they actually use this kind of interactivity to an effect where it actually makes your maybe connection stronger than movies?
I think so. I think it's going to be very personal.
Yeah,
I would agree with
I wouldn't expect someone else to agree with me on which ones do and which ones don't.
When people consume interactive games or interactive storytelling, the interaction is always present. So that acts as a barrier, and that is telling you, oh, there is a set of possibility and these are the possibilities that you're given. And that kind of breaks it. Like in a movie, you just sat down and you're just waiting the content to be shown to you. So you have no idea what the Joker is going to do with the ships in Christopher Nolan's Batman. But if I have a prompt on screen saying like, oh, what do you want to do with the ships? Blow them up or trick them to think that they will blow up? Then there is a barrier there. And that was what we were trying to do with Hobby. Take that question out of the interaction, so then it feels more like a movie. And then you don't have...
But I mean, like games have gone way past that by now. Take something like, okay, in Cyberpunk 2077, there's a character who basically, if you do everything that you're supposed to do, like all the prompts the game engine gives you to do a quest and follow the arrows and stuff, they die. But if you actually ignore what the game engine is telling you to do and do something else, you can save them. The thing is, in the movie, you could not have been a deciding factor about whether the character lived or died. Like, for me, I have a level of cynicism about authors where if stuff just goes a certain way that seems convenient for dramatic purpose, I disconnect. It's like, okay, yeah, the author decided they wanted some drama, and so they made people hold the idiot ball, and I don't care about anyone anymore in this. Whereas in something like the Cyberpunk sequence, if I went through that and the character dies, and I find out later they could have been saved, that's my fault. I messed up. I was the one who actually had the idiot ball, and I decided that they would die, even if I didn't make that decision consciously. And that makes it have weight that a movie can't have.
Of course, if that's the question, then yeah, who wouldn't agree with that? But my point is that the engagement that you feel in video games, because you're aware that there is an interaction, then you get more focused on how can I change this interaction? How can I make it more, I don't know, whatever ending I wanted to have? But my point is, it would be ideal to have an interactive story in which you have no idea that there is a mechanism behind it.
In this case, if we go a little bit aside from video games and talk about games in general, if we talk about D&D, for example, you do have choices that you have to make, and it's part of the mechanic, but the world around you is still evolving. So whether you decide, for example, to go on a side quest or to go on a main quest, you make a choice, and the choice is here, but you don't know if the child you left in this village that needed saving will be saved or will die, and you made a choice. I'm not sure that the idea of having to make choices is something that would block you from having a better or worse experience. In a game, the world around you evolves without you having to do something necessarily, so things happen out of sight, but they do have consequences for what you do and what you feel.
Even in a very realistic game or in life, you could argue you don't only have one story, you have different perspectives of the story, right? You have different interactions, maybe some affordances that are not accessible to you. I don't know. Is it so clear that has the most feeling of engagement? Some people will tell you that they are going through life and there's nothing actionable to them.
I don't think that these things are orderable. I don't think it's like, because of their interactivity, games have a strictly higher degree of engagement than movies, and like life has a strictly higher, degree of engagement and things like that. I think that they have different tools that you can use to create engagement, and someone can make a bad movie, someone can make a bad game, and someone can make a game that engages people in a fundamentally different way than a movie engages people as well. I wouldn't put those things on a scale and say A is greater than B. I'd say they're different ways of engaging.
Eternal Darkness, I think, is the good example, I would say, for interaction on a absolutely linear game, no open world involved or anything. But in that game, the actions you take don't change the output of the story. But what they do is they have something that they call like stress level or something like that. So if you behave in a way that the game perceives as stress, it would have the Sony interface as if someone changed to a TV channel and the recording of a TV channel. So you would literally jump and rush to your remote, try to change it, and then you change it, and then, oh God, the game kicked me out. You go back to the game, and it is crazy immersive. That type of interaction, I'm totally sold into. I'm still not totally sold with the other types of interactions in which, oh yeah, it's an open world, you can do this, and that, but then you end up playing games like, for example, Ghost of Tsushima is an absolute beauty, but you had the main quest that waits for you until you spend 2 weeks solving all the side quests, and the story doesn't, like, your uncle never get killed until you go and save him. That's those type of weird interaction. I'm like, this is too forced. Like this, of course, I know there is an overlord waiting for me to go and solve the game in a specific way.
Yeah, but I get that about movies and stories too. There are always these cases where it's like, yeah, of course they had to have them like lose the artifact rather than just destroy it when they got it, because if they destroyed it, there wouldn't be a plot. So they have to lose it so that there's actually this climactic ritual where they have to seize the artifact back or prevent the ritual. Yeah, like bad writing is bad writing.
I agree with you, but that is something that doesn't happen when you trip into the story that your brain makes up in a photo or in a song or in something like that.
You mean reality?
Yeah, well, a photo of reality, but like it can. There was this comparison of these different crops of the same photo told a very different story. This was a war photo, basically. I think like Afghanistan. One of the crops made it look like the soldiers were like shooting or threatening people at gunpoint, and the other crop looked like they were handing out food to them. And it was just the crop of the same photo. If you start to get skeptical about that kind of thing, or you start to get cynical and you see like a very convenient crop or something where there's like a detail that's just at the edge of the photo or something, even with something very real, you would say, well, wait, like I know that this isn't just reality as presented. This is something someone has chosen to present to me. And then you can get a detachment because you recognize that there's some manipulation inherent in the medium. And so you detach yourself in order to think about it more rationally. I think you can get detached with anything or desensitized with everything. I think we need to get Oneris to play Discourse. That's my proposal here. That is sort of a... Can you count on what?
Can I count those hours as working hours?
A game review.
Yeah.
It could be argued for.
That's it for this week's episode of the Cross Labs podcast On My Mind. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you'll be the first to know when the next episode is out. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.